very kindly agreed to show us the Conde-Charlotte house in Mobile. A journalist by training, Mary Lee Montgomery started her career reporting and editing at the Mobile Press Register daily newspaper for almost 10 years. She has spent the rest of her career weaving in and out of the field of public relations, working in nonprofits, disaster services, and the arts. Most relevant was Mary Lee's experience at the Mobile Museum of Art, where she worked as a development and membership coordinator and marketing manager for 4 years. Mary Lee was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and was raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She received her BS degree in English and journalism from Tennessee Tech University, Cookeville, Tennessee. She has lived in Mobile since 1982. Since her arrival at the Conde-Charlotte Museum in 2016, she and the Alabama Dames spent 3 years restoring the museum, including replacing the roof and back balcony and repairing and repainting both the interior and exterior, plus attending to everything that goes along with such a restoration. Mary Lee is now looking forward to expanding the museum's programs and its 200th anniversary celebration in 2022. So Mary Lee, thank you so much. You have a lot of really wonderful information to share with us. And I think everybody's going to enjoy this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you thinking of us and including us in the presentation and in your second conversations. It's been good to meet you, Tina and Abby and Catherine. And I guess just we can get started now. Let's see. Do I need to do something?
Yes, go ahead and share your screen again, Mary Lee.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Not the most technically savvy, but okay.
Yep, there we go.
All right, there we go. And just to let everybody know, there's a little bit of a delay from my screen to y'all's screen. So anyway, I will get started. As everybody should know that the Conde-Charlotte Museum is owned and preserved by the NSCDA in Alabama. And we are very proud to be on the National Register of Historic Places and delighted to be a part of NSCDA's Great American Treasures. I think that's a great program that NSCDA has really kicked up in the last couple of years. And so I think it's a great program. So the Conde-Charlotte Museum was Mobile's first jail. That's how it started out in 1822. It was the first jail and courthouse. And what you can see here is one of the jail doors that we are still using today. And this photo is from 1936, back when during the Depression, when one of FDR's programs was going around and taking pictures of everything in the country. So we have another photo coming up of the house itself. The city, of course, it grew. So it abandoned the courthouse and the old jail in 1839. And it was left abandoned for about 10 years. It went into decay. Part of it was destroyed. But Jonathan Kirkbride, having a lot of foresight, came in and bought this, basically the lot, and restored what was there and built his home. He added the fireplaces, windows, the porch on the front, and he and his wife, Elizabeth, and their 6 children and some nieces and nephews all moved in, and it was their home. And in the Kirkbride family until about 1926. So that was a long time, almost 8 decades. Kirkbride was from New Jersey, but moved down to Mobile when he was a child, and he was an entrepreneur and a banker, and he owned a hardware store, and he was a builder. So it was very handy for him to restore the museum. And there we are today. We look a little bit better than we did in that photo from the 30s. It's now our beloved historic house museum. We have, of course, period furnishings and antiques, and the Dames decided to use this house to be representational of the countries that ruled Mobile since 1703. So that would be the French, the English, the Spanish, the American, the Confederate, and then back to the American. Sorry for the delay, you guys. But our docents welcome guests through the Southwest Alabama's complex history under its European sovereigns, its American territory, as a Confederate city under siege. And this is the entrance to the house, and the entrance to the house is set up the way the Kirkbrides might have furnished it, which was 1850-ish. We started out in French rule in 1703 and the French ruled for about 60 years, part of the Louisiana territory. What you're looking at here is the French sitting room. And it is decorated in the period of Napoleon rather than from 1703. Finding antiques from 1703 was next to impossible. So the Dames decided to use the decor from the period when Napoleon was in charge, and when a lot of his French refugees were moving to Mobile, 1814 to 1830. So if you can see over there on the left of the screen, that picture of Napoleon is actually a penny point, needlepoint picture. And it's one of my favorite pieces in the museum because it is so intricate. The next picture you'll see is of the French bedroom. And it is decorated the way we think Josephine Bonaparte may have decorated it, or in the style that was popular. The tie backs there for those curtains are swans, and on this chair here, right here, are swans. We have other swans in the room because Josephine loved swans. So they really became the popular decorating accent of the day. But the French, after 60 years, the British came in and took over. And they gained a large part of the territory east of the Mississippi River in 1763 at the end of the French and Indian War. So you can see the portrait of King George III. He was ruler at the time. And noticed that the English, their decor is a little more matter of fact, not a lot of flowery embellishment. And I just think that's a fabulous contrast. King George's wife was Charlotte. And so that is why we call our house the Conde-Charlotte. The French had called it Conde. A fort was built here initially. It was Fort Conde. So the Danes decided to name this house the Conde-Charlotte house. Following the British rule was the Spanish. Of course, the British only ruled for 17 years here, and then the Spanish came in and took over for 33 years. And this is our Spanish courtyard. Spanish didn't use a lot of grass in their entertaining courtyard spaces, a lot of brick and slate, and we have a couple of tile fountains. The brick there around the cistern in the bottom right corner was found when one of our tunnels was being built here in Mobile. And the Danes were fortunate enough to collect that brick and make a cistern. And that's pretty exacting brick to go to be in a concentric circle like that. We believe that that brick could possibly have been made by some free Black artisans who came with the French to Mobile. Then, after the War of 1812, we finally became American. And this is represented in our American dining room. And the mirror there over the fireplace is called a girandole mirror. And that was actually the first piece that the Danes bought for the house. And that could also be called a hostess mirror or a chaperone mirror because it is convex. And so a hostess or somebody's daddy could look in the mirror and see if somebody needed something more to eat or if a girl's suitor was behaving himself, not taking advantage of his little girl. There in the bottom corner is a silver service by Simon Chaudron, who had moved from Philadelphia to Mobile. He was a silversmith in Philadelphia and moved to Mobile and became a watchmaker here because he was getting older and his eyesight was bad. Of course, during the Civil War, Mobile was a Confederate city. That also was the Victorian period and the antebellum period. So Mobile was flush with money at the time, and everyone in the correct position had beautiful, rather ornate furnishings. That was the style of the Victorian period. Mobile at the time was the 27th largest city in the country and the 4th largest city in the Confederacy. So it was typical to have a double parlor. You can kind of see the red couch in the background there. And this is the back parlor. Men would entertain in one of the parlors, and the women would gather in the other parlor. That kind of scruffy looking photo at the top of the screen there, that is the foundation of the jail, we believe. That's what researchers believe. And you can see the square in the middle of the room there. That is where that photo is. The foundation was about 2 feet thick. We believe that is to keep the prisoners there at the jail from digging their way out. Archaeologists on the site found those 3 objects there that are in the photo: the copper bowl, a shackle, and you can see those lead knuckles there. Now, we don't know if those lead knuckles belong to one of the inmates or to one of the guards to keep people in line. You never can tell about that kind of thing. Our next photograph is of our kitchen. And it's just a typical kitchen of the period when the Kirkbrides might have lived there. And it is off of the Spanish courtyard, away from the main living quarters of the house. We go upstairs, and this is the Kirkbride, what we call the Kirkbride bedroom. None of these furnishings belong to the Kirkbrides. They are collected by the dames, except for the portrait over the bed there. That's Elizabeth Kirkbride. She looks a little tired, and because she had all those children to take care of. In that photograph, she's only 36 years old. You might think she was a little bit older. The crib at the foot of the bed there came from Cahaba, Alabama. It's circa 1830. And that Cahaba was believed to be the first capital of Alabama. And we recently had the state's bicentennial. But some people say that Huntsville was the first capital of Alabama. And other people say that St. Stephen's was the first capital of Alabama. So who can say for sure? I think it's a matter of opinion. It also could be a matter of who was living in those 3 cities at the time. This bedroom, you can see the Kirkbride bedroom through the double door there. This bedroom we call the daughter's bedroom, but we don't know for sure. In this room, you can see the 4-teaster bed that was very popular at the time the Kirkbrides lived there, stenciled. I love this bed. I love the painted furniture. In the bottom right corner there, you can see that tin wash tub where kids took baths, and the kids took baths in order of their age. So the oldest child, then next, the next, the next. So by the time the poor little baby got a bath, the water was just dirty. You couldn't see through it. So that's why folks said, don't throw the baby out with the bath water, because you couldn't necessarily see that baby in the bath water. Our next room is quite a contrast. This is what we have set up as our slaves room. We just recently found out that Jonathan Kirkbride did indeed own 6 slaves. And what we are doing now is researching and rewriting our script to get up with the times, just like every other museum and organization in the country right now. Mobile in particular has had a new awakening because the last slave ship remains were just discovered in the last couple of years in just north of Mobile Bay. So a new museum to that is being built. They just broke ground on it a couple of weeks ago. And so we have decided at Conde-Charlotte Museum that we need to get up to speed with and tell the correct history of everyone who contributed to the development of Mobile and how they lived. Mobile, like so many other port cities, we were talking about this with Charleston yesterday, had a good population of free Blacks, and then there was the population of slaves. So we're delving into that, and we want to tell the history of it and the relationships everyone had with each other. It's not an easy history to cover. It's complex. So after the Kirkbride's family sold their family home in 1926, the house went into disrepair. It became a boarding house, and during the Great Depression, so many families lived here all at the same time. So in 1940, the house was going into bankruptcy. So the Historic Mobile Preservation Society saw its significance in the history of Mobile, bought the house and renovated it for it to be its headquarters. But a couple of years, World War II broke out. And so the Historic Society loaned the house to the Army to use for its officers club. In 1957, well, in 1955, the Historic Society decided to move their headquarters to the Oakley Mansion here in Mobile, a beautiful historic home. And they deeded the property over to the city, which in turn sold it to the Colonial Danes in 1957. So the Colonial Danes ran with it, fixed it up, polished it up, and opened the doors for preservation and educational purposes in 1961. In 1970, though, they had to close the museum because the George Wallace tunnels were being built on I-10. And so the construction company used this building as its headquarters. Our back wall suffered during that because the drilling that they had to do to build the tunnel kind of shook the wall. So we've been dealing with that ever since. So finally in 1973, the museum reopened and also received its listing on the National Register of Historic Places, which the Danes were very, very thrilled to receive. And in '88, it received its designation from the Mobile Historic Development Commission. So a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, not long after I started working here, I noticed that walking to my office is on a balcony. I noticed that the balcony floor was a little spongy. So we checked it out, and you can see in this picture here that it was rotten. So we had to replace our balcony here, and I worked out of the house for about 4 months. But you can see in the bottom photos that turned out really so beautifully. This bottom right corner, that's the balcony that goes to my office. So I was very grateful that I did not fall through the balcony. So we decided that we wanted to take the storm windows off of the windows in the house and repaint the trim. We fortunately had a construction manager who donated his time to us, Ian Claridge, just a really wonderful man who did not know what he was getting into when he said he would donate his time and expertise. But nonetheless, we thought we would paint the trim on the house. Well, we decided then that if we were painting the trim, then we needed to paint the whole exterior of the house. Well, so Ian decided to do his due diligence and check the roof to make sure there were no leaks before we took care of the stucco exterior. And you can see at the top, those top photographs, that digging through layers of shingles, that the planking for the floor of the roof was just pieced together, rotten. You can see here in this top right photo that some of the joists there were rotten. So that became a huge project to take all of those shingles off and replace the decking, replace a couple of the joists. And now we have a nice new roof. You can see a couple of the guys there who were the roofers there waving to us. That was such an unexpected project. So finally, we get to the exterior of the house. You can see here our windows, why we would want to repaint them and take the storm windows off. One, the storm windows were so unattractive. And another, they were the reason we had mildew built up on the window frames. You can see also that one of our shutters was propped up. So we had here in the bottom, you can see where we had the stucco repaired, and then eventually we were able to paint, and the exterior just looks so beautiful now. I'm just so thrilled. So of course, one project leads to another. When you have the exterior just looks so lovely, and we walked inside and we thought, wah, wah, kind of drab looking. It hadn't been painted in a long time. Those cracks on the exterior led to water seeping in and causing the plaster on the interior to bubble and crack. And you can see in our kitchen door there where the plaster was falling. So there we go, another project to renovate and restore the interior of the museum. It was more than just painting, it was plastering. And we took the opportunity to step up and replace some of our lighting here. Feller Lighting was very generous with us in providing these two chandeliers and another chandelier in our upstairs hall that were from the period, and which was wonderful because we just had little lights there before that. So there are electricians installing the hall light, and I love it because the painters who painted the interior of the house was an all-female crew. The electricians there who did most of the work, electrical work in the house, was a female crew. And, you know, I just think that's perfect for a women's organization and for Women's History Month. So now we are looking at our garden, the Spanish garden. You can see and I'm not sure what this yellow box is here. It just shows up and it's fading away, thank goodness. But this upper left corner, that was the garden when it was first put together years ago. Over the years, different dames had different ideas, and so it's been changed around, dug up and redug. The middle picture there on the top is a couple of dames from the garden committee planting. They were very faithful in coming in and planting every year. We have a beautiful Sasanqua here, espalier, which is typical of a Spanish garden, the espalier. They tried to plant peach trees in Mobile because they brought them from Spain. They tried to plant them, but it didn't work. The climate was a little too hot for the peaches. So the colonial dames decided to plant beautiful Sasanquas. The bottom left photograph there is a photo of the garden from just a couple of days ago. And then on the bottom right, you can see where I have circled that jasmine. We're about to rip out that jasmine and replace it. Catherine Butler is leading the charge on the garden restoration. And we are working with a horticultural historian from Louisiana, originally from Mobile, who is helping us decide exactly how to replant and what to replant to make it as authentic as possible. We're real excited about that. So now we're looking at our 200th anniversary in 2022 of the jail. We're very excited about that. Catherine and Christine Warren, the other House chair, are putting together committees. So we'll have a wonderful gala celebration. And we know by 2022, we will all be able to gather together again and have a big party. And hope that so many people come and celebrate with us. So if y'all have any questions or comments or corrections, any of the dames from Alabama, please speak up and share your thoughts.
Thank you, Mary Lee. That was wonderful. And we do have some questions and comments. The first one came pretty early on, I think, when you were starting out. Copper gutters, is that what you have on the outside of the house?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then next question deals with archaeology. Has there been much archaeological study of the property? There's so many interesting intersections of cultures here that there's probably a lot.
There are. Several years ago, let me see when that was. In 2009, the archaeology department out at the University of South Alabama came out and did a few digs in the yard. And we have a couple of cases, display cases with fragments that were discovered in the yard of pottery that is from the French period. There's also some Indian pottery that was found. So a dig was made by that department and the students, but there's more that can be done. We sort of did a dig, not this Christmas, but the Christmas before, because while we were doing that whole interior renovation, our sewer line to the street burst. And it didn't burst. It just had roots growing in it, and it was cracked and leaking. And so we had to replace that whole line. It was, let's see, it was probably 200 years old. Clay pipes put in back when the museum became a house, or I guess when it was built as a jail. Anyway, so we found a few more pieces, relics then too, that we pulled out and added to our display. But a whole lot more could be dug up because there's also relics. We found broken bricks from the Fort Conde. Fort Conde was originally a log fort, but in, let's see, when was it? I think it was in, sorry about that. I'm terrible with dates, so I need to double check it. Fort Conde, I can't find it right now, but not long after it was built, it was torn down and replaced with a brick fort. So those are the bricks, and like I said, the bricks that are around the cistern in the Spanish courtyard.
Okay. Do you have plans to, at some point, do a major archaeological dig? Or I guess after you've finished restoring everything, to have to go dig it up again probably doesn't sound.
No,
I know.
We do not. One thing, our property is fairly small, but we have two big empty lots on either side of us. So those would be perfect spots to dig up, because there's nothing there right now. So so we would rather probably not dig up our small little lawn, which we had to completely resod after digging up for the sewer line. It was a project.
Which flags do you currently fly out front?
We fly 5 flags: the French, the Spanish, then the British. We have the American flag in the center, of course. French, British, Spanish, American, and then we do have the Confederate flag. It's not the Confederate battle flag. It's the official Confederate States of America flag. So and that's a flag that flew over Mobile, so we feel confident in flying that.
Okay. Do you get any comments about it, or has there been any kind of issues with it? Okay.
No, not really, because it's not the battle flag.
Okay.
That was actually, in that battle flag was from a regiment in Virginia. So no, we really do not get comments about it.
Okay. What contributed to the wealth of Mobile in the years before the Civil War?
Well, cotton was king, and Mobile is a big port. Well, Mobile Bay is like the 6th largest bay in the country, so it was a very active port. And so we exported cotton out of Mobile. People from the state brought their cotton down to Mobile, and then it was exported north and exported to England into Europe. And there was so much cotton, actually, that the first road that was built from Mobile over to Baldwin County across Mobile Bay they cushioned it, made the foundation out of cotton bales,
Huh.
and they're still there as far as I know. But it's a really solid structure.
Do you know anything of the history of the different inmates that came through the jail?
No, we don't. It would be interesting if we could find that. But we just really haven't investigated that, and probably won't for the time being until after we get our research completed on the Black history and enslaved folks here in the museum. I mean, who are here at the property.
Okay. The property appears to be in the middle of the city. Was it always in the middle or in the really commercial populated
Yes.
district?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the property originally, Fort Conde was much bigger than it. A replica Fort Conde was built at the country's bicentennial in 1776. And it was a small replica. The original Fort Conde expanded over this property where we are now. So that was, Fort Conde was the city for a long time. In 1840, they destroyed Fort Conde. And so this street that we are on is called Theater Street. And so there was a big theater in the lot next door to us. It's not there now, but yeah, I mean, it was the jail, so,
Yeah.
and the courthouse, so it was downtown. So, and right now we're located in a really great spot because right behind us is Fort Conde, the replica, and it's a big tourist spot. Around the corner is the History Museum of Mobile, which is a fabulous museum. It not only tells the history of Mobile, but it is also was originally the marketplace, the building itself, and City Hall. And once a year, Mobile's City Council still holds a meeting there so that we can claim it as being the longest continuously used city building for city council meeters in the country. A very small claim to fame there.
Was the Conde-Charlotte occupied by Union forces after the fall of Mobile?
No, not that we know of. It was owned by the Kirkbride family. No, until 1926. So, as far as I know, they were still living there.
Okay. And what is the square footage of the house? Do you?
I'm not really sure. It's not a huge house. It's typical of the time. One main hallway down the middle, 2 rooms on the right, 2 rooms on the left. Upstairs, the same thing, a hallway, 2 rooms and 2 rooms. And then there is, you saw on the balcony that there's an extension that goes out of the back and then views around the courtyard there. So we feel like that Kirkbride added those 2 extensions, and the kids probably lived there. Of course, the kitchen was in one of them, one of the rooms and stuff. And, you know, the servants lived there too.
Okay. Is the lot that you have today the same size that it's always been, or that Kirkbride owned it, or?
I believe so. Just looking at the photographs from the 30s. Of course, we really don't know from before that, but we do believe that it hasn't changed. there's a brick wall, brick and stucco wall around the property that has been there. So
Okay. Okay. You said that you were trying to find out more about the slaves who lived on the property. How and where are you able to find this information?
well, again, Catherine Butler is leading that charge with another dame who has just volunteered, Drew Oswald. And they are consulting with the History Museum of Mobile, State Archives, and the experts at the Dora Franklin Finley African American Heritage Trail. And they are taking the lead on the Africatown Museum that is being built for the Clotilda slave ship. So we've got a lot of resources just here in town. But it's funny, Catherine found out about those 6 slaves through ancestry.com. It's really, so it was really great initiative she took in finding that out.
Okay. Are there any Kirkbrides still in Mobile, or has the family?
I believe so. We do need to talk to them a little bit further. But the only thing we have from the Kirkbrides is that portrait of Elizabeth, and then we also have a portrait of Jonathan Kirkbride.
The Petty Point picture of Napoleon that you mentioned, where did you come by that? That's really amazing.
I honestly don't know. The women who restored the house that back in the 50s through the 70s found that piece. A lot was found in New Orleans, which is a great resource. And so I would have to go back and look in our collection records to see exactly where it came from.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Mary Lee? Does Mobile have a fairly strong preservation movement?
Yeah.
Or is it
yeah,
or?
I would say that Mobile is very preservation oriented. Of course, the 1970s were devastating. And the 60s were kind of devastating to the beautiful homes in Mobile. But now, and I would say, gosh, most of the time that I've lived here since the 80s, Mobile has really gotten more and more preservation oriented. Of course, this building, the City Hall, the original City Hall, a lot of historic homes that are owned privately. The Barton Academy was the first school in the state. It's a beautiful building with a dome, and it is being restored as we speak. Another building that's owned by one of the Mardi Gras societies was just recently restored. So yeah, and then another Mardi Gras society has just restored Cotton Hall, which was at one point an orphanage. Unfortunately, at Christmas, it caught on fire, so it has some fire damage. Didn't burn to the ground. They were able to contain it. So they were working on restoring that. But yeah, Mobile is pretty preservation oriented. We're also very protective of our live oak trees. We have a lot of beautiful trees in the downtown and midtown area. We have an oak tree in right by our parking lot that we wanted to just attach a spotlight to light up the parking lot, and we were not allowed to do that. So we found a palm tree in the back of the parking lot and put it there. So, but we didn't have to put up a pole, so we were glad about that.
Well, from Allison Stevens, Mary Lee, thank you for the tour and greetings from Chattanooga.
Yes.
Any other
I love it.
questions or comments?
Well, I have certainly enjoyed talking with everyone. I hope I didn't ramble too much and was too confusing, but please come to Mobile. We have a lot to share here, especially if you are history oriented. The Conde-Charlotte Museum loves to partner with our other historic homes in Mobile. You've probably all heard of Bellingrath Gardens. That's a little south of the city. Us, Oakley, and the Bragg Mitchell Mansion, the Richards DAR House. We have a number of unique homes. All of those homes are very different in their style. Ours is typical of what might be in the city. Of course, it's brick and stucco. So Kirkbride saw that and said, well, this baby's not going to burn to the ground like every other house in Mobile. So I think that's one reason he bought it. Of course, that's supposition on my part. But anyway, please come to Mobile. We love our city here.
So, well, thank you. From Marcy Moody, thank you, Mary Lee, a wonderful program. From Mitchell, thank you, Mary, for a most interesting program. I look forward to visiting Mobile in the future.
Yay,
And
great.
from Bridges, looking forward to coming. Thank you for your warm invitation.
Well, thank you.
And thank you so much for doing this. It's been a great tour of the house, and also just how the NSCDA Alabama has chosen to interpret the house when there's so many different strands to interpret. And also those of us who work in museums and who manage museums love to hear the story of what happens when you start to repair one thing and it ends up being a whole house restoration. So that was a great story. I really enjoyed hearing.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Louise Rayford and Leah Stimson, who were my house chairs when we did all of that. So they took on a whole lot more than they ever expected. And they did a great job.
It's beautiful, and we thank you for sharing it. Again, thank everybody for joining us today, and I hope we will see you in 2 weeks when we head to Virginia for a visit with Gunston Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting.
So thank you, and have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you on March 18th.